Hey everybody, Tuesday today. We are going to be talking about fidgeting. Why do kids fidget and what are some things that we can do to help our kids that are fidgety? So as always, before I dive into this, I want to talk a little bit about some progress that we're getting with some of our kids. As always, one really amazing thing that has happened this week is one of our clients heard from, and I posted this on our story the other day, so you might have seen it there too, but one of our clients' pediatricians said, whatever you are doing with your son, keep doing it because the change in him is so undeniable, and it's just so awesome for us and for them to get that validation from, outside sources. All outside sources always feel good with validation in our program, but also just getting it from a doctor is so crazy cool. So, all right, we are going to be talking about fidgeting today. Like I said, why it happens, what we can be doing about it from a place of functional neurology. So instead of helping kids cope with their fidgeting or giving them fidget spinners or things that they can do to move their body around in a way that's not going to be distracting to the classroom or whatever, we want to figure out what's going on in their brain that's causing them to fidget in the first place. And if we can heal it from that place, then we'll start to see a lot of progress without needing medications and without needing to help kids just cope with those issues. All right. So, first thing I want to talk about with fidgeting, like I always talk about, I'm going to talk about them probably in every single live video that I do, is primitive reflexes. There are about, I would say, 2 or 3 primitive reflexes that will cause some fidgeting. So the first primitive reflex that can cause fidgeting is the Landau reflex. So I think I talked about this one a few weeks ago, and you can always go back and watch the video that I did about the Landau reflex. But the Landau reflex is just like all of the other primitive reflexes. Actually, it's not technically a primitive reflex because it doesn't emerge until about month 3, but still by 1 year should be completely suppressed. So what a Landau reflex looks like in a baby is if you hold a baby up. It's so funny to watch this happen. If you hold a baby up and they're first of all going to automatically kind of push their body out into the Superman position, and then if you push their head down, their feet and their legs will move down too, and if you bring their head back up, their feet and their legs will pop back up at the same time. It's really crazy to watch. But what's happening is when that primitive reflex doesn't get suppressed the right way, we have kids now that have a retained primitive reflex or a retained Landau reflex. And now every time they're moving their upper body, their feet and their legs have an impulse coming from their brainstem telling their feet and their legs that they have to be moving too. So if your child is really fidgety specifically with the lower half of their body, and we're going to talk about the upper half of their body too if they're playing with stuff all the time, but specifically if your child is really fidgety with the lower half of their body, it's likely that they have a retained Landau reflex. So if this is something that you think your child is struggling with, if your child struggles mostly fidgeting with their lower body, send me a message and I will make sure that we can send you the video for the suppression of the Landau reflex and even how to test it yourself at home, which is always fun to do. All right, so that's the Landau reflex. That's one thing that can contribute to fidgeting. Interestingly, there's another primitive reflex that I would have probably not tied to fidgeting until I saw this happen actually at a school. It was really crazy to watch. We had a little guy years and years ago. His name was Miguel, and he was the cutest little 5-year-old on the whole planet. But he was so crazy fidgety. He could not sit still at school for anything. And I actually did a meeting with his school just to talk about the results of his testing that we did and just kind of share with them what we were doing and what we were working on. And I said, Miguel has a really intensely retained spinal Gallant reflex. So a spinal Gallant reflex is a set of nerves that runs up and down your spine, and when you stimulate those nerves on a baby, it causes them to wiggle around a little bit. And the only reason we have this primitive reflex is because during birth, those nerves are supposed to push against the birth canal, and babies can kind of wiggle themselves out a little bit. That's the only reason that we have it, but like all other primitive reflexes, it needs to be gone by 1 year. So what happens when that primitive reflex doesn't get suppressed or integrated properly is now we have kids that have this same set of nerves that runs up and down the spine that's still really sensitive. So this will cause tactile sensitivity and bedwetting, interestingly enough. So if your child has a hard time with the way tags feel or the way jeans feel or shoes or socks, or they just have tactile sensitivity, it's likely because of a retained spinal Gallant reflex. And also if they wet the bed frequently, I'm not just talking about, once or twice here or there, but if they're a kind of chronic bedwetter, that's because of a retained spinal Gallant reflex as well. But anyway, I went to this kiddo school and I met with his teachers and I said, we know he has a really severely retained spinal Gallant reflex, and I just explained what that means, and he was just so fidgety. He couldn't sit in a chair, he couldn't sit at circle time, no matter what they did, this kid just could not sit still. And the very next day, they flipped his chair around. So instead of sitting with his back against the chair, he had the front of the chair in front of him, and his back wasn't touching anything. And he had the best behavior, almost no fidgeting at all the entire day. He sat through circle time on his backwards chair and was totally fine, because as he was sitting in his chair, all of those nerves were getting stimulation and causing him to wiggle around all over the place. And he was bedwetting, and he had crazy tactile sensitivity. This doesn't happen this way for every single kid, but for some kids it does. So again, if you think your child has a retained spinal Gallant reflex, also make sure, send us a message and we will get working on that right away, because I think you'll see a lot of huge change happen just from that one. Okay, so the other thing that, a couple more things that can lead to fidgeting, one of them is proprioception. I know we talk about proprioception all the time. I love primitive reflexes and I love proprioception because they control so much of how we interact with the world around us. Proprioception is our brain's connection to our body, our brain's ability to know the space that we take up in relation to all the people and all of the things around us. So if our brain doesn't know where our body is in space at all times, which it's supposed to, your brain is demanding information from your body all the time, saying, feet, are you still there? Legs, are you still there? Is everything still connected and healthy the way that it should be? So when we have low proprioception, the body's having a hard time getting information that says, yes, I am still here, we're still connected, everything's okay. Those signals aren't going from the body back to the brain the way that they should be. So what happens is the body has to look for different ways to get those signals to the brain. And one of the ways that we see that is through movement. So the body will actually start moving around, fidgeting, or touching stuff. It's through touch and through movement that the body will try to get those signals back to the brain. So if your kid is just moving around constantly, they have to be on the go all the time. If you also think that they have poor coordination or they have a hard time understanding the social like cues and nonverbal communication, that's all likely because they have low proprioception, and this is something that causes a lot of fidgeting in kids. So low proprioception, and then the last thing that I think causes kids to be really fidgety is just an overactive left hemisphere. The left side of the brain says, go here, say that, do this, go, 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 whatever it is, you just got to touch it, do it, play with it, whatever, just go. And the right hemisphere regulates all of that. The right hemisphere is supposed to say, that's not a very good idea, or remember what happened last time you did that, you're going to get in trouble. And it thinks about the big picture, and it thinks about consequences, and it thinks about the social situation that we're in. But the left hemisphere is going, and if the right hemisphere is under functioning, underdeveloped, and it can't communicate all of that regulatory stuff with the left side of the brain, then all that stuff just spills out. So you've just got kids that are on the go constantly. If that sounds like your kid, they have an overactive gas pedal and an underactive brake pedal. They very likely have an underactive right hemisphere. And we talked about that a lot in the past 2 live videos that I've done, is how to stimulate the right hemisphere. So make sure to go back and watch those as well. So we've got the Landau reflex, the spinal Gallant reflex, proprioception, and an overactive left hemisphere, all contributing to kids fidgeting. So if any of this sounds like your kid, if any of this resonates with you at all, please don't hesitate to send us a message. We'll make sure to get you started on the right exercises right away to start working on those different functions for your kiddo, so they're not fidgeting, and I bet you'll see some really cool other changes kind of come out of that. So I just wanted to say right before I hop off here, we've got 2 spots left at our discounted rate in our summer program. So our summer program is awesome. We've got so many people getting crazy huge change. I just talked to somebody a few minutes ago who's sleeping better because of exercises, so I'm so excited for him too. We've got adults, we've got kids, we've got everybody in between getting really amazing change in our summer program. And we have 2 spots left at 50% off. So if this is something that you've been thinking about, send me a message and we will get a consultation on the schedule and just talk about if this is the right thing for your child or not. If the things that I talked about today sound like your kiddo, I bet it is going to be the right move for them. But we've got 2 spots left, so make sure you go ahead and jump in. And another really exciting thing that we're doing, we've never done this before, and I'm so excited to get going with it. We're doing a $77 primitive reflex suppression challenge in the first week of June. So you're going to take Memorial Day to kind of get acquainted with all the information, and then June 1st we're going to hit it hard, and it's going to be really intense. It's the first 2 weeks of our online program that we're giving to you, so it's like $500 worth of information that's just $77, and you're going to just do a bunch of primitive reflex integration exercises. I'm going to be showing up in that group every single day to encourage you guys and keep you guys going, and I am willing to bet that you're going to see huge change with your kids if you can get in there and just get the work done. It's not going to be very much fun for everybody. It is intense. It is a lot of hard work, but man, totally worth it. We've had so many people get such ridiculous change in the first 2 weeks of our program that I just wanted to offer it to, as many people as we can get it to. And Sandra, you can rewatch this live. Absolutely. It'll process for a few minutes and then it'll come back up once it gets done. Hi, Dr. Carolyn. Thank you for joining. All right, you guys. Well, I'm going to hop off of here. But again, if you're interested in grabbing one of the spots in our summer program at 50% off, send me a message. If you are interested in getting into our primitive reflex challenge for 2 weeks at $77, also send me a message about that. And I am excited to do this again with you guys on Thursday. Okay? Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you later.